Do you guys think Ewan McGregor had started filming Boyhood yet at the time of this movie?
I don't think so, because he wasn't in it.
Who was in that?
That's Ethan Hawke.
Oh, I get them confused all the time. Seriously? Oh, man.
Yeah, it's Ethan
The whole
Hawke.
time I was watching Boyhood, I was like, wow, I can't believe they got Obi-Wan Kenobi for this movie.
No, the guy from Training Day.
Oh.
That's the cold open right there. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Arnies. We are three Sith Lords with nothing better to do than talk about Star Wars Episode 2. I'm Austin Terry, and I'm joined, as always, by my best friends, Matt Johnson and Keith Baker. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great. I hated watching this movie, but I'm excited to do all the quotes, because, man, there are some good ones. Let's start off with a good one to tease everybody. It's okay. Just tell me where he went. Tell me!
Oh. Keith, it's always good to see you. Looks like you got a shaved head. How you doing?
Trying to channel my, does Count Dooku have a shaved head? No, he doesn't. Trying to think, who has a shaved head in Star Wars?
Obi-Wan's friend at the diner.
Oh, Dex. Yeah, I'm trying to channel my inner Dex.
Dexter Jetster.
Man, what a treat this movie was. Well, as you can tell from the title, today we are continuing our journey through the Star Wars franchise with our second prequel movie, Attack of the Clones. Oh boy, guys, we made it. We're almost through the prequels, and I gotta say, this movie was so bad, I had to take a break while watching it.
And you liked Phantom Menace.
I did.
I was really expecting you to like this one, Austin. I really was. That's
I know.
surprising.
I know you guys were worried. This is a movie I think the three of us have been both collectively dreading to watch, but then at the same time excited to talk about. Matt, give us some thoughts so we can get right into it.
To your point, I didn't take a break because I waited until today to watch it, so I kind of had to just, actually watch it. And, man, I feel like all the other movies were like 2 hours, and this one was not that much longer. It was only 2 hours and
2 hours and 12 minutes because I wiggled the mouse so many times while watching it.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I'm not even joking. I always felt like I was so far into the movie. I got to a point where I was like, I think we're getting close. And I wiggled the mouse and we were 40 minutes in. Or I don't know how much we were in, but I know there was an hour and 40 minutes left. And I was like, it's only been 20 minutes? I thought it was getting close to the end.
I did the same thing.
Well, then the best one was whenever we get to Geonosis, I was like, okay, now I know we're actually getting to the end. And then there was still an hour and 15 minutes left. And I was like, I just kept shaking. And I remember there was another one where there was 40 minutes left. I was like, how is time moving so slowly?
Same thing. I thought it was at least 45 minutes in, and I was watching it on Disney Plus, and I wiggled the mouse a little bit to see where I was, and I think it was 18 minutes in, and a lot had happened. I was like, oh man.
All right. Well, let's start, as always, with some movie facts, and let's get right into the cast. We have Ewan McGregor returning as Obi-Wan Kenobi. We have Natalie Portman returning as Padme Amidala. Ian McDiarmid returns as Chancellor Palpatine. Hayden Christensen makes his debut as Anakin Skywalker. Christopher Lee makes his debut as Count Dooku. This film is also directed by George Lucas, written by George Lucas and Jonathan Hales, and scored by John Williams. Matt, sounds like you had something to say.
Well, I guess in response to the first one, they thought, let's bring in another writer. So either they brought in a garbage writer, or they brought in someone that just said yes to all of George Lucas's terrible ideas.
Lucas didn't want to write this film after how poorly received The Phantom Menace was, so he chose to bring in Jonathan Hales, who had no theatrical experience, and instead had helped him writing the TV show, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. So he brought him in to help. Lucas had actually finished 2 drafts of the film, and then he brought in Jonathan Hales to help him with the 3rd draft of the film, and that was eventually what they shot from. I couldn't find anything saying what he actually contributed to the film, though, but he clearly did enough to get a writing credit. So I don't know what he actually changed, but it was enough for him to get a writing credit on the film.
He contributed some cringy lines, that's for sure.
Lucas actually said that he knows he cannot write romance, which is another reason he chose to bring in another writer.
Well,
but
this guy wrote it so much better.
Write romance as well.
So this guy wrote the romance plot?
I don't know.
my
I don't know.
God.
That's what I'm assuming, because he went out of his way to say he knows he can't write romance.
I wouldn't even call it a romance plot. It's just a stalker plot. There's literally a scene where Padme, I'm not even joking, this is not a bit, people, if you haven't watched this movie in a while, Padme literally says, "Stop looking at me like that." He says, "Why?" She says, "You're making me uncomfortable." She walks away, and he fucking smiles. And then it cuts to the next scene. I was like, dude, this is creepy. It's even worse than you remember if you have not watched this in a while.
That's very true. Because I hadn't seen this movie in years, and I definitely had forgotten how creepy Anakin Skywalker is.
Yeah, he's a creep, man. He's also a murderer and somebody that would, prefer a dictatorship to, what they have, apparently. But anyway, they fall in love.
Just some other quick production notes. They once again decided to rely heavily on CGI and advancements in visual effects. Matt's making a face at me. And some examples of that are there's no storyboards for the creation of this film. They used digital animatics, which are basically home video footage filmed with a green screen to give an idea of what they're going for, but no production values put into those. And in addition to stunt doubles, the actors also had digital doubles for some of the CGI stuff. And this is the first film where Yoda is fully CGI as well. Right,
because they retroactively made him not a puppet in Phantom Menace. So I guess this was the first time that, even in theatrical, it was full CG. And there's some weird stuff with the CG, even weirder than Phantom Menace, I guess because they relied even more on it.
See, we'll get into it, but
really
I felt
weird.
like the CGI looked way better in this film than The Phantom Menace.
I mean, I think a lot of the stuff did, but these digital doubles they're talking about looked like garbage. Watching Anakin surf on top of that animal.
Yeah.
And then the one that made me look around the room to see if there was anybody else that saw how bad it was how weird was it seeing in 4 movies before this? 3PO, a guy in a suit controlling him. How weird is it to see him fully CG on Geonosis, he's flopping around?
Genuinely
so
looks
weird.
Slimmer too, when he's in CGI,
like a monster.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So this film releases May 16th, 2002. It makes $645 million worldwide against a $115 million budget. And I'm not sure if this is going to surprise you guys or not, but it shocked me when I read it. This film was actually pretty well received by critics, which I found surprising. Some critics even went so far, and I'm specifically referencing a review in The Sun, to call this film just as good as Empire.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. That's a stretch.
I mean, it's close.
It currently has a 65% on Rotten Tomatoes. And overall, like I said, it was way better received by critics than The Phantom Menace was. Some things critics liked were they were happy Jar Jar had a diminished role, and they felt like this movie got away from the childishness of the first one. They really praised the final act of the film, and they also specifically praised Christopher Lee as Count Dooku and felt he brought a certain gravitas to the film that the first one lacked.
Yeah, he did great. What are these people talking about?
I don't know, man.
Christopher Lee is a legend, and he was sleepwalking through this movie.
My jaw dropped reading some of these reviews.
I get some of it. I mean, obviously, if you're somebody that watched the first one and really hated Jar Jar Binks, I don't think you'll really have a problem here. I mean, he's barely in it. And yeah, at the time, I'm not going to say, when I was a kid, I thought these movies were the greatest thing in the world. And the CG was so cool. But yeah, it just like Phantom Menace and so many other movies, it just doesn't hold up the CG anymore. It looks terrible.
Even The Hollywood Reporter and Empire Magazine, both positively reviewed this film and gave it way higher marks than they gave The Phantom Menace.
I mean, I guess at the time also I could get that they think it's darker and it gets away from the childish stuff. I mean, in some ways it does, but I don't know. Maybe it's just more of a thing by today's standards. A lot of it seems silly. So, I don't know.
So some things that were criticized, the dialogue, of course, was criticized. And then also some of the character development and the romance was also uniquely criticized as well.
Yeah.
For good reason. Yeah.
Not good. Ugh.
Well, let's get into the film. The first act opens on Coruscant. We learn in the opening crawl that there's unrest in the Galactic Senate. A separatist movement led by Count Dooku is causing planets to split from the Republic. The Jedi are no longer able to maintain peace, and the Senate is voting to hold a vote on the creation of a Republic army. Padme has returned.
Who cares? Who cares? Why is this in here? I hate it.
Padme, who's now a senator, has returned to cast her vote on the creation of the army. After a failed assassination attempt, Obi and Anakin are assigned to protect her. Obi tracks a bounty hunter to the planet Kamino, while Padme and Anakin hide out on Naboo. So let's get into it. Let's first start with the assassination plot.
Yeah, I mean, she has like 15 decoys, so good for her.
Yeah, another decoy dies right away.
Yeah.
It looks nothing like her. She's like 50, and Padme is like 17.
Yeah, I even went and checked, and it's not Keira Knightley playing that one.
Yeah, it was not.
I know everyone was eager for Kira's return, but it didn't happen in this one.
I know, such a shame. I don't know. I think, I guess, looking besides like the shitty CGI from the explosion and stuff like that, I mean, looking at that stuff aside, I mean, I guess it's an effective opening. I mean, obviously we're familiar with the character, and then seeing her almost die, it's like, okay, kind of an exciting opening, I guess. I'm trying to be positive.
I guess it is an effective way, too, of causing Padme, Anakin, and Obi-Wan to reunite again, because they do establish it's been 10 years since The Phantom Menace.
We haven't seen her in 10 years, Master.
You're sweating. Relax.
Can we also talk about how did nobody know that Anakin was gonna, throw aside his Jedi responsibilities and get with this girl? It's so clear. He's like, I haven't seen her in 10 years. I think he even later says, being with her, it's intoxicating. It's like... I mean, of course this was going to happen.
He even says to Obi-Wan, I've thought about her every day since I left.
I know, and he
yeah, that should be a red flag right there.
Yeah. I don't know, man. So weird that nobody picks up on that.
So after the first failed attempt, we see who's later to reveal Jango Fett meeting with his, partner assassin. He hands her some poison caterpillar-like things and releases them into the room with Padme while she's sleeping. Then causes Obi and Anakin to embark on this really weird speeder chase across the top of Coruscant. It's awful.
It's so bad. Obi-Wan jumping out the window and just hoping that he catches this small little thing.
Yeah.
And then Anakin doing the exact same thing later when he just throws himself out of the speeder.
And then Obi-Wan's like, I hate it when he does that. You just did that. You just jumped out of a window.
There's so many bad lines here. They just make me want to bash my head. I mean, he's like, sorry, Master, I forgot you hated flying. He's like, I don't mind flying, but what you're doing is suicide. It's like, ugh.
They try to do all this relation building stuff with Obi and Anakin because we jumped 10 years, so we miss everything. And it's kind of like what we talked about in Empire, and where with Han and Luke, they don't do any of this stuff where they're like, oh, remember when we did X? Instead, you have Han immediately just willing to risk his life to go save Luke, which is way more effective than just having casual banter about all the fun adventures that we didn't get to see as an audience.
And it's also just more believable that they're friends, who, by the way, Han and Luke, barely on screen together throughout those movies. And at the beginning, they're only together at the beginning of Empire. And the way they show that they're friends is because they joke around with each other. They talk to each other, and they talk to each other, and they don't seemingly hate being there. I don't know. It just seems real. I mean, they're clearly friends. And here, you're right. I mean, the way they establish this period of time we missed is just by talking about all this cool shit they've done that we're not seeing.
Yeah.
Ugh. It was so lame.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm sure we'll talk about it more when we get to Revenge of the Sith, but I just am so shocked that, the premise of these prequels was, where did Anakin Skywalker come from? How did he turn into Darth Vader? How did Palpatine get to power? And, these are the 3 moments in time they chose. Obviously, I get Revenge of the Sith, because, spoiler alert, that movie ends with him becoming Darth Vader. But the first one is him as a little boy. The second this one movie just seems like a random period in time. Like, we missed the Clone Wars coming up, which I know there's a show that everybody loves that's about that. But I mean, at the time, why wasn't this movie about the Clone Wars? And then why was the first movie a kid? I'm just so confused about like the periods in time they chose. It feels so random and like we're missing such critical information and like relationship building.
Yeah. The first movie, maybe they could have started off with him just as a kid, like in the first 10 minutes, and then maybe skip forward like 15 years or so whenever they're in the shit battling, doing whatever they were talking about doing in the elevator.
Yeah.
And all that. And then, yeah, like you said, then go into the Clone Wars instead of, yeah, like, you're right. They picked a weird 2 pieces of time where, yeah, Anakin's an innocent little kid, and then all of a sudden he comes back and he's like this arrogant, cocky, kind of going against everything that Obi-Wan's saying and all that. So they just skip that whole development.
Yeah, because he wasn't like that before. So why is he now?
And also, well, I think it's kind of implied that that's like kind of Palpatine's doing, because they do kind of establish that he has like a secret relationship with him, where Palpatine's like also secretly mentoring him as well. So maybe because Palpatine even goes as far to say as like, I've said it before, you're the most powerful Jedi ever. So I'm sure that's just Palpatine in his ear, which is causing Anakin to be arrogant.
Yeah, he's definitely grooming him. Yeah,
I do think Hayden Christensen gets slightly better as the movie goes on, but in this first act, the way he's delivering his lines is so weird. Like, what is with this dude? Like, oh my god, I'm sorry, master. Like, he just sounds bored to be on set.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about it more because, I mean, I guess we have to. I mean, we ripped Mark Hamill to shreds, so it'd be unfair if we didn't talk about another person. Well, not another person, but this is the person in this franchise that gets ripped apart. This is the person in the franchise that basically didn't work again after these movies.
In this first act, he makes Mark Hamill look like a good actor.
Yeah, I do agree with you. He definitely does get better as the movie goes on. I think I also feel similarly to how we talked about Jake Lloyd last time, which is he's not as bad as everybody says. Like, people think this is like the worst performance ever given.
I agree with you about Jake Lloyd, but Hayden Christensen is way worse than I remember him on this video.
Yeah. I guess the only thing that's hard is, like, I know he's a good actor because I've seen him in lots of movies, even movies before this one came out, like Life is a House and Shattered Glass, that he's really good in. So what happened here? Is it just
the lines
isn't one of those actors, like we talked about last time with Liam Neeson? He made shitty lines actually sound cool. Is Hayden Christensen not capable of that? Or is this
he's probably just too young. But we did give Jake Lloyd credit for doing more with what he was given. So I don't know if we can give Hayden Christensen a pass as well, because Jake Lloyd's younger in the first one.
I do think Hayden Christensen is definitely given tougher, darker material. And you're right, he is still young, and George Lucas, as we've talked about ad nauseum, is notorious for being really terrible at giving actors direction. Like, they're kind of just aimless, and unfortunately, Hayden Christensen kind of took the brunt of the negativity. But yeah, I can at least say I agree. He definitely gets better as it goes, but all of his lines are garbage. They're all terrible. So
Obi and Anakin do eventually catch this assistant assassin. I think her name is Zam or Zen.
Zam, yeah.
Yeah,
Zam. Eventually, Jango assassinates her from like a sniper dart bullet, which causes Obi-Wan to further investigate this mysterious bounty hunter. And then this kind of leads to them splitting up. Obi decides to continue his investigation. Anakin and Padme decide to retreat and go hide out on Naboo.
As again, we've already talked about it a little bit in the past. Phantom Menace, the big literally the only moment that Anakin and Obi-Wan have is when they get on the ship. And it's like, you're a Jedi Knight too? Nice to meet you. And it's cute and it's fun. It's like, this is how they met. And then they don't do anything else in the movie together. And then you're like, well, that's okay. We're going to get to the next one when he trains him, and that's going to be cool. And then they have this really garbage opening. And then Obi-Wan just leaves to go do his own storyline. And then they come together for the last 10 minutes of the movie. And then, spoiler alert, Revenge of the Sith, they do this again. They're apart. How are we supposed to learn about these characters if we do a 10-year time jump and then they're apart the whole movie?
You gotta read the books.
Oh, I forgot to read all 40 books and play each video game. Yeah, you're right. That's my fault.
Before we get to Camino, I do think we'll regret it if we don't talk about the scene with Anakin and Padme packing for Naboo. And we get some great Hayden Christensen delivery here. I wrote it down because it shocked me how bad it was, but I'll just read it out.
Oh, I know exactly what this is. Go for it.
It's not fair.
Yep.
He's overly critical. He never listens. He doesn't understand. It's not fair.
And that's when you wonder, like, how does she fall in love with this guy?
That's what I'm saying.
She's so calm.
Whiny.
She's like,
he's more whiny than Mark Hamill. At least,
I know.
At least, like when Luke is whiny, it's because he's like a little kid and like doesn't fully understand the world. But this guy's been a Jedi for 10 years now, and he's still this whiny little bitch.
He's not a Jedi. Remember, whenever they're like,
I don't want to learn.
Well, Jedi, what do you think? And she's like, he's not a Jedi. And then he's like, excuse me. I
have that in my notes too.
Yeah, I actually didn't even realize that until this viewing, that Padawans aren't Jedi. It's like, you're not a Jedi until you take the trials and become a Jedi Knight. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. We are kind of joking here, but while they are like packing and preparing to leave, this is kind of our first inkling of we sense there's some discomfort between Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship. And you kind of get to see like the dark side of Anakin.
Why? Where's this coming from?
They never explain.
They seemed pretty cool earlier, and then we get to the scene, he's like, he's overly critical, and I hate him. It's like, what? Like, you were just calling this guy your father earlier, and now you hate him?
I think the overly critical thing comes once again from Palpatine, who's been telling him, like, you're the best Jedi ever, so he thinks he's ready for the trials, but Obi isn't letting him take the trials, I guess, but it's never established.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know.
It's just the beginning of his dark side. Yeah, he's just...
That's the only reason it's here. Says. There's lots of stuff that we'll get to that I noticed on this viewing that is clearly only in there to justify certain things that happen later. Why does Anakin murder women and children? Because it literally makes no sense why he would do that. And then it makes you think and you go, oh, I feel like this guy, after becoming Darth Vader, wouldn't immediately kill children. So I think they put it in this movie so that they could kind of justify how evil this guy becomes in the next movie. I don't know. And this is that same thing. Like, why does he hate Obi-Wan? I think George Lucas and Jonathan Hales, the romantic author of our generation, I think when they were writing it, they were probably like, shit, we wasted that whole last movie. There was no Anakin and Obi-Wan stuff. We need to have them hate each other one movie from now. How do we do that? Well, what if we just have Anakin out of nowhere say that he basically hates Obi-Wan? And then Jonathan Hales was like, well, George, what's the reasoning? And he's like, I don't know. Let's not put it in. We'll get to it later. They forgot.
So let's move on to the Obi-Wan plot. We'll come back to Anakin and Padme in a second. Obi-Wan is trying to investigate the origin of this dart. He goes and sees his old friend Dex in a really weird diner scene.
The Pulp Fiction diner, as I've called it.
It kind of looks like that, yeah. So after meeting with Dex in the diner, Dex points him in the direction of a mysterious planet called Camino. He goes and confers with Master Yoda, who helps him find this planet in the galaxy that's been mysteriously erased from the archives.
Okay, we got to talk about this. So I feel like, again, this movie's too long. It sounds like we all agree with that. So what can we cut out? We can cut out this. This doesn't make any sense what happens here. He gets the dart. He's going to go talk to his friend. Cool. We get to see a different side of Coruscant. Whatever. Cool enough, I guess. Takes the dart. And this guy that Obi-Wan says later that he trusts says, oh, this is from Camino. They make clones there. Decent amount of information. Goes to the Jedi archives, I guess. I guess this is the only place you can find it. And he's like, yeah, it's supposed to be right here. Where is it? And then the librarian's like, I don't know. I guess it's not there. I don't have to tell you. And he's like, okay. And then he goes to Yoda, and he's like, Yoda, quick question. There's a planet that's supposed to be right here, and I can't find it. The kids are like, I guess they erased it. And then Yoda's like, that kid, brilliant he is. Yeah, and then Obi-Wan's like, well, what do I do, Master? And then Yoda's like, just go there. Okay. So Obi-Wan is known for 3 scenes now where this planet is, and Yoda's great advice is, just fly to the place where you think it is. And then Obi-Wan's like, okay, bye. It's like, we don't need any of these scenes. Obi-Wan knows where it is. And Yoda's advice is, just go there anyway. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, and he can even point to it on a map.
Yeah.
Like, the planet's not on the map, but
and
he
he
can
even
point
says,
to the spot
and it's so
on the
weird.
map.
It should be right here, and there's all these stars circling around it. It must be in its gravity. And then Yoda's like, you should go there. There's clearly a planet there. And it's like, Obi-Wan knew where it was. We had to endure like 3 extra scenes of him talking to a creepy librarian, and then
You had to go to the
weird
Hogwarts
kid.
library and talk to Professor McGonagall. She's like, it's not in the archives. It doesn't exist. And he's like, impossible.
I was like, I like that. That was good. It's so weird how this happens. It's like, just go to Camino.
So we do eventually arrive on Camino, and Obi-Wan is shocked to find that he's expected. Matt, can you tell me your nickname for the Camino workers?
I would just probably call them the giraffe people.
The long necks? Daddy long necks?
Yeah.
Yeah, these long-necked giraffe Camino people are waiting for him. He meets with their prime minister, who says they're right on schedule building the army, and that they know Master Sifo-Dyas will be pleased. Yeah, and that's the big twist, is that Master Sifo-Dyas has been dead.
Yeah, that was crazy. I will say, though, despite the jokes, the Camino stuff is cool in a vacuum, I feel like.
Yeah, I do like this part.
It's also a really cool design that I think holds up for the most part. It's just like a planet that apparently is just constantly being stormed on, and it's mostly water. So it's just like they have these platform cities, basically. But yeah, I really like the setup. I mean, he gets there, it's like, whoa, why are you expecting me? And then it turns out somebody, we don't know who, commissioned in secret this entire army. And the funny thing is, it's also kind of cool, is you would expect this army would be the opposition, which again, spoiler alert, they kind of briefly become enemies in the next movie. But in this one, it's like, oh no, he commissioned them for the Republic. Like, they're yours. And it's like,
yeah.
Wait, what? What's happening? So it's kind of cool how they set it up. I like it in a vacuum. It's just there's so much shit surrounding it.
This is definitely the most interesting part of the first act, I think. Eventually, we do learn that they are cloning these soldiers from Jango Fett, who is the bounty hunter that he's been tracking.
I like that.
We get a pretty cool interaction, too, between Jango Fett, a young Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan as well.
Take Boba out of it, and I agree with you that it is cool.
It's just a cool fan moment that he's there, I guess.
I am sure people were so stoked in the theaters, but does it go anywhere? No. But yes, Keith, go ahead. I know you love this line.
I just love the quotes from Boba. Like, Boba, is your dad home? Yup.
He's such a weird kid.
They have a pretty intense conversation, though, which I like.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Cool.
It's just like
it's a cool conversation.
They know clearly each other's intentions. Like, he knows this is the bounty hunter. He knows this is a Jedi. And they're just kind of faking it to seem diplomatic. Yeah, it was cool. And the fight they do, I did not remember it being kind of cool. I actually kind of like the fight they have.
Yeah. And let's go right to the fight. So Boba knows he has to leave as soon as he interacts with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan sends a message to Yoda and Mace Windu, who tell him, all right, bring this guy in. And then eventually a fight ensues as Boba and Jango try to escape the planet, and Obi-Wan tries to capture them. Yeah,
the thing I like about the fight is that it seems like this was something that was... It's not as good, but it's similar to what we talked about last time with the fight between Darth Maul. Like, we were so impressed that, like, man, this must have taken forever to choreograph, and they thought of everything, and they just outperformed the expectations. And here they did something similar with the whole premise of, like, it seemed like the fight they wanted to do was, we want this legendary bounty hunter, who is Boba Fett's dad, to fight Obi-Wan Kenobi. Cool in premise, but how the hell do you make that
Especially
fight
since
interesting?
Boba didn't get a cool moment in the original movies.
Agreed. So I'm sure that's partially why they did it here, but also they have to figure out, how are we going to do that? Obi-Wan has the Force. He has a lightsaber. How's a guy with a jetpack and a gun going to do anything remotely cool? But they did it. They made it really cool how he was actually able to hold his own.
Yeah. And usually I would hate when, like I always hate it when, like, our hero loses, like, their main weapon.
Yeah.
But the hand-to-hand combat here is really cool. So it works for me in this scene, too.
Yeah. No, it was really cool. And I like the suspense.
It's also, like, a cool, like, multi-leveled fight, too, like, with all the platforms as well.
Yeah.
So, cool scene here. I think Camino is definitely the best part of this first act. However, we do have to move away now and go to Naboo and the Anakin and Padme relationship.
Oh, no. It's so bad.
Anakin and Padme travel back to Naboo, where they meet with the new queen and the local Naboo government. Padme takes a second to burn Anakin and remind him he's not a Jedi yet, and then they go hide out in like a lake house, basically.
This is also where we get probably the second most famous line in Star Wars, the first being, "I am your father." I mean, this sand thing has just gotten out of control. I mean, this is like the second most popular line from Star Wars. Like, I hate sand. Like, she's telling me this like really sweet story about how like when they were kids, like they used to go out to that island. Like, this was my favorite place. I loved living here. And then his response is just like twiddle his fingers, like looking down. He's like, "I hate sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. It gets everywhere." And her response, rightly so, is just like, okay. Like,
and then
like, what do you say to that?
And that's when it moves into creepiness, and he goes, "But other things are soft."
And then he just rubs her
back.
Where did this come from? Where did this come from? Like,
he weirdly rubs her back, and then his monologue about sand gets Padme to kiss him somehow.
I mean, that's going to be the rest of it. It's whenever she burns him in front of the the Naboo, whatever you want to call it, the new queen and the court or whatever. There's like a moment where you're like, I hope, like, obviously this is going to be the person he has kids with, but hopefully it's actually a cool relationship. I mean, it's starting off kind of from a cool place, maybe like kind of the antagonistic Han and Leia thing. And then no, like the next scene, he just starts rubbing her back out of nowhere. He's an asshole. And then they kiss. It's like, what? It's so weird.
Yeah.
And it gets worse. And we're going to get to it.
After they kiss, Padme says, no, they can't do it. He's a Jedi. She's a senator. It won't ever work.
They're having a picnic in front of a waterfall. They're riding like giant camel things.
Well, we gotta talk about the other thing. I mean, we talked about in the last scene that like he rubs her back for like 2 seconds and then like says a really creepy monologue, and for some reason she's down to kiss him. But in this scene, he literally says his preferred form of government is a dictatorship. Padme is a former queen, current senator, and her reaction is, sounds like we were talking about a dictatorship. And then he's like, yeah, like, I mean, how do you get people to do what you want? And she sounds like, force them? He's like, I guess. Like, that's a dictatorship.
Yeah, he said, if it works. And she kind of just like looks at him like, oh, that's not good, but I'm going to love you anyway.
Yeah, this is somebody in the government. Yeah. And she isn't like, this isn't a red flag.
Well, and this starts a trend, too, of like Padme just being down with Anakin's like basically genocidal behavior.
We'll get to the main one later. But yeah, this is the start of it.
And then she's also talking about her old boyfriends.
Oh yeah, and he looks like he wants to kill her.
Yeah, she's like, he was cute, and he's like, I get the picture.
So yeah, eventually Anakin tries to show off by surfing on these weird,
oh my god,
like warthogs, basically,
yeah.
I guess. And then they roll in a field together. I guess it's supposed to be some relationship building. Eventually we get them having like a late night dinner by a fireside where Anakin tells her like, I'm in agony every minute I spend with you.
I thought it was so funny how it just cut to that. It goes from a green sunny field to just being like candle lit black couch. It's so weird.
It's weird. And again, it's like, it doesn't seem like they're in love, and now we're already at the point where he's basically saying he's in love with her. And like, here, I wrote this quote down. From the moment I met you, all those years ago, not a day has gone by when I haven't thought of you. Now that I'm with you again, I'm in agony. The closer I get to you, the worse it gets. The thought of not being with you, I can't breathe. I'm haunted by the kiss you should never have given me. My heart is beating, hoping that kiss will not become a scar. You are in my very soul, tormenting me. What can I do? I will do anything you ask. Uncomfortable pause. If you are suffering as much as I am, please tell me.
What a weirdo.
These fucking monologues are the reason this movie is 2 hours and 17 minutes long.
My God.
Psycho.
It's so bad.
So after that great love poem that he wrote for her, Padme once again tells him it's not possible. And then they go to bed, and Anakin has a nightmare about his mom. He wakes up in the morning, and he says he has to go to Tatooine to try and find her because he knows something's wrong.
And this is just like the stereotypical dream stuff you see on like shitty TV shows. He's just like laying in bed sweaty, and he's just like, his eyes closed, like shaking. Mom? And he just goes, and like wakes up. So funny. Dude, this movie's not great.
Well, let's get into the second act now. This act opens with Obi chasing Django through the asteroids of Geonosis. On the surface of the planet, Obi finds Dooku and other separatist leaders building a droid army. He sends the news to Anakin and the Jedi Council. Anakin and Padme return to Tatooine to try and find his mother, who is married into the Lars family and been taken captive by Tusken Raiders. Back on Coruscant, Palpatine is continuing to gain political power, and a vote is being considered to give him emergency powers as well. All right, so let's get into the asteroids. Keith, I know you like this scene.
Yeah, I like this scene a lot because I mean, Slave One I always thought was kind of a badass ship.
Yeah, all of the Obi Django stuff is really cool in this, and further on into the Geonosis plot, I actually do find like the Count Dooku and Separatist stuff really interesting as well.
Yeah, it's all interesting. I just feels weirdly meshed together.
They'd also never established why Django is there. He also knew he was being followed and led this Jedi to the planet where they're building their secret army.
Okay, let's break it down, I guess. So first he was hired to kill Padme. That's why he sent Zam. So that's number one. Number two, he was the one that they made the clones after, which I'm not too sure how he got involved in that. I can't remember.
They just paid him a lot of money.
Yeah. And then number three, I don't know why he's going to Geonosis. I don't remember why he's going to there. I mean, maybe he's just a bounty hunter for hire to do, the task they don't want to do. I don't know.
It's just so weird that he chooses this planet to lead Obi-Wan to.
Well, I mean, we know he's going there, but I guess he doesn't find out until the last minute that Obi-Wan is tailing him, and then he thinks that he killed him. But Obi-Wan, faked him out by releasing the debris or whatever. Yeah, weird. Now that I'm thinking about it, I actually don't even really remember his involvement in the plot. I mean, like in the future, we know that Boba Fett is used by Darth Vader as like a bounty hunter for hire. But Django seemed a bit closer to the Separatists than that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what his role would have been if he hadn't died. I don't know exactly.
Well, regardless, Obi-Wan does eventually sneak down to the surface and follow Jango Fett. And this is where we're first introduced to our Count Dooku, who's meeting with the Separatist leaders. And our friend Viceroy from the first movies here as well.
Is that legal? Yeah, and it's revealed that Newt Gunray, the Viceroy, was the one that originally wanted Padme dead, so kind of kick-started that plot. But it's one of those reveals when it happens, you're just kind of like, okay, who cares? So, I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Take it away. I don't have much to say. I'm just so confused by what's going on.
So eventually, Obi-Wan does get a message off to Anakin and Padme. However, while he's sending the message, he's captured by Count Dooku.
Yeah, and this is kind of a cool scene at times, and other times it's just weird. So he basically gets captured, and then, I mean, we, the audience, and Obi-Wan at this point know that Dooku is with the Separatists. And then Dooku comes in the room and is basically trying to play a good cop, I guess, and trying to play innocent, that he's not that involved, I guess. Kind of weird, but Obi-Wan already knows
Yeah, he's
that.
trying to get Obi-Wan to join him, which is kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, and of course we get that thing which this movie does in spades. It'll do it more later. But we get the line where Christopher Lee as Dooku is just like, oh, I was so sad that Qui-Gon died or whatever. And then Obi-Wan's like, yeah, and then Dooku's like, I mean, he would have joined me. And then Obi-Wan, of course, is like, he never would have done that. And then Dooku's like, you don't know that. And then he's like, I mean, you forget, Kenobi. At one point, he was my apprentice. And then it's like, okay. And then, so this is kind of where they set up that everybody that we meet is basically, they were either somebody's apprentice or master at some point. Because at the end of the movie, Yoda to Dooku was basically like, laugh at me, but it's like, I can't even say, it's just like, before they fight, he's just like, no, you're a Sith now, Dooku, but don't forget, you were once my Padawan. It's like, what? It's like everybody is like a Padawan.
I have a question, too, about Count Dooku. At the beginning of the film, when Padme is almost assassinated, she goes to the council and says, hey, I think this was Count Dooku. And then Mace Windu says, there's no way it was Dooku. He was once a Jedi. He wouldn't, like, it would be against his ideals to try and assassinate someone. So is he the first Jedi to ever turn to the dark side? Like, has that never happened before?
Well, I don't think they knew. I don't know if they knew he was like officially on the dark side at that point. I think they knew that he.
But it sounds like the only reason they. It sounds like the only reason they think Dooku couldn't have tried to assassinate her is because he was once a Jedi, implying that a Jedi has never turned to the dark side before.
That seemed odd because we know from like the Old Republic stuff, which is canon in some way, that like back when there was basically a lot of Sith, I think that was more of like a thing that happened. Like people would get, like Anakin does, people would get turned for various reasons. Maybe they go good, maybe they go bad. But
so why is it so hard for them to believe that Dooku could possibly be turning to the dark side?
I don't know.
Maybe because
this movie sucks, dude. This movie's trash.
Know. Maybe because they don't. Jeez, this movie fucking sucks. I don't know. I guess they. Yeah, I think it's implied that he's like independent, like he's not on either side right now. Maybe that's what I got from it, but I don't know.
But they say it would be against his character.
Yeah, like that, like as if he still like maintains his Jedi, his characteristics or laws. I don't know.
This is the same Mace Windu, though, that didn't know that Chancellor Palpatine was the Sith Lord. And again, to be fair, nobody did. Yeah. But
they even talk about how much they like Palpatine, too. They're like, oh, Palpatine, he's such a good guy.
Well, I think Yoda has his suspicions in this movie. You can see it that one scene.
Yeah, Yoda has his suspicions about everybody and never does anything about it. He's sensing Anakin murdering all these people and just goes, oh, such grief in young Skywalker. It's like, what?
It's because of the prophecy. The prophecy said Anakin is supposed to be the chosen one, so they can't believe it because of the prophecy.
Yeah.
So they're like,
I think they just put up with Anakin because they hope that he'll somehow bring balance to the Force. We also see him at the end whenever Padme falls out of the ship and Anakin has a tantrum. Put the ship down! We see at the end of that scene that Yoda senses that, which again is like, how do we not know that these two were gonna like get married and like all that stuff? I don't know.
Yeah,
Yoda sucks.
Well, let's move away, unfortunately, from the more interesting plot line and go back to Anakin and Padme. They've arrived on Tatooine, where we get a brief reunion with Watto. Were you guys happy to see Watto again?
This is a weird scene.
Annie, little Annie, it is you, Annie.
I was doing that impression with Austin last time when we were talking. I just kept doing it. Like, I love the first one. Whenever he realizes, he's like, Annie? A Jedi! What do you know? But again, they don't act like, at least Anakin like isn't treating him nicely, which is good. But this guy like acts like they're going to be best friends. It's like, I was your slave. Get away from me.
So Watto does tell him that he sold his mother to the Lars family, but eventually whoever bought him, I guess, fell in love with her and they got married. So Anakin goes to meet the Lars family, but they tell him his mother's missing and she's been taken captive by Tusken Raiders. What did you guys think of our return to the Lars family farm? Haven't been there since A New Hope.
Yeah, two things. Didn't give a fuck. And then the second thing is just another example.
Why the fuck are we going back to Tatooine so much?
Well, not only that, even a worse example is Shmi Skywalker got sold to someone else. Who'd she get sold to? Nobody important. This is a huge planet. Oh, the Lars family.
Matthew,
so fucking...
I've said it every episode and I'll say it again. It's the Force!
Yeah, it's all connected. So it's revealed that Anakin's stepbrother was Owen Lars, played by Joel Edgerton.
Really?
Yeah, that was Joel.
Yeah, that was Joel Edgerton.
Oh.
A young Joel Edgerton.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't really care about this stuff. I do think there's only one remotely interesting thing about the Tatooine stuff for me, and it's whenever I don't even know if interesting is the right word, but it's the scene. It's before we found out that he murdered women and children for no reason, but where it's actually good is when he goes to save her. He sneaks in there. They have like a sweet, reunion. She unfortunately passes away, and dude, when that music hits and he flicks his head up, like, holy shit, that was awesome. Like, the anger in his eyes, and when he walks out and just beheads the two people guarding, I was like, this is so cool. But then then it doesn't get so cool later. But for a while, this was pretty cool.
Yeah, so he eventually does track down the Tusken Raiders. He gets in a brief union with his mom, like you said, and then he proceeds to kill everyone in the camp. And like you said, Matt, I have it in my notes. I do like the Vader theme playing here. So I'm on board with you there. That was cool.
I like that too. And I also like that they played Duel of the Fates while he was riding on the speeder.
Yeah,
that was the same song from the Darth Maul
I do like
fight.
that speeder montage too.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool as well.
Was nice.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Unfortunately, we then come back to the Lars family farm where he talks with Padme. He confesses to killing all the Raiders, and then he makes sure to clarify that he didn't just kill the men. He killed the women and the children. And you know what Padme says? Padme says, "It's okay to be human, Anakin." It's okay to be human.
It's okay, man. We all have moments of anger. But hold on, we have to do the whole quote, because I wrote this down too. I killed them. I killed them all. They're dead. Every single one of them. Not just the men, but the women and the children too. They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them!
It's okay to be human.
Anger. It's okay.
And then somehow this scene again becomes, I hate Obi-Wan!
I know.
He's holding me back! He literally does. He says Obi-Wan's holding him back as he, like, throws a wrench or something.
He throws a wrench at that speeder that Luke drives in New Hope.
Oh, you're right.
And unfortunately, we also have to mention that we're reunited with 3PO on the farm. So 3PO joins the gang. They head back to the ship where they receive Obi-Wan's message from Geonosis. The council orders Anakin to stay with Padme. However, Padme says, "I'm going to help Obi-Wan. And if you want to protect me, you have to come too." So then they head off to Geonosis as well.
And then he just smiles. He's like, yeah! Again, she already forgot that he just confessed to murdering an entire village of people because they're animals. So he slaughtered them.
And she
like
doesn't
animals.
care. He's already said he wants to be a dictator. He wants to force people to his will. He's now murdered people in cold blood. And she's on board with all of this. Like, she knows exactly who she's marrying.
In a weird way, it may not much, but it maybe would have made a bit more sense if she wasn't a former queen and senator. It's even weirder that she's in such a high position of power, and all of these confessions, she doesn't care.
She also goes out of her way whenever she's meeting with her leadership and the other members of the council to say, "I believe in democracy. We don't need an army. We need to believe in democracy." Like, basically saying, like, goodness will prevail. But meanwhile, her boyfriend is murdering people, like, all over the place and saying he wants to be a dictator.
Have we gotten to the Jar Jar stuff yet? Because that's what you just brought up.
That's what I want to touch on next. So before we get out of the second act, I do want to touch on Palpatine gaining power in the Senate. Like I said in the first movie, I do find the political stuff really interesting, and I do like it here too. I'm glad that it's less than it was in the first movie, but I do really like Palpatine, like, kind of gaining power legally. He does kind of take advantage of Jar Jar, but he still does get everybody to vote him into this, like, Supreme Chancellor role as well.
I mean, this is the moment. I mean, this is him seizing all the power. I mean, there's really no more power moves by him the rest of the prequels necessarily. I mean, Revenge of the Sith, he's the Supreme Chancellor already, obviously. So he's in the highest position of power. I really liked
like the Senate scene in the first movie, and I really like it again here too. And we should also mention that Jar Jar has been left in Padme's place, and so Jar Jar is now voting in place of Padme.
Yeah, it is one of those things that makes you wonder, like, did George Lucas just see all the Jar Jar backlash, and his response was, we'll just make him the reason Palpatine rises.
You want to know
power.
something funny about that? The running joke among the cast and crew was that this movie's title was Jar Jar's Grand Adventure specifically because of the backlash of the first film. They just thought it was like a funny inside joke, which gives you some of that great Lucas comedy that he's known for.
I mean, he's hysterical. What's your favorite funny line from this movie, Keith?
Oh, there's a line. That's not my favorite line, but it's a funny one. Is whenever they're interrogating the Jango's assistant, Zam. and Anakin's like, tell us who you're working for. Tell us now.
That's the best. That's so funny. There is actually one line that I do think is genuinely funny, and it's only because of Ewan McGregor's acting. I do actually like the line whenever they all... Because the whole time Obi-Wan has thought that Anakin and Padme were on Naboo, where they were supposed to be. He doesn't realize until later that they left to go to Tatooine. And then he's even more surprised whenever they show up on Geonosis. But I love his reaction whenever Anakin's like, we decided to come rescue you, Master. And then he just like looks around and he's like, good job.
Yeah.
I like that line.
All right, well, let's get into the act that the critics were sure to praise. They said the final 40 minutes are the best part of this film.
40 minutes, by the way. 40 minutes.
Longest third act in the Star Wars franchise, I think. I know in the original trilogy we said that it was way too short. But yes, this kicks off with Padme and Anakin landing on Geonosis. They find themselves captured immediately and are due to be executed with Obi-Wan. However, Mace Windu arrives just in time with the rest of the Jedi Knights. The droid army is deployed, and just as the Jedi are about to be overrun, Yoda arrives with the cloned army in tow. A larger assault ensues, and the Jedi give chase to a fleeing Count Dooku. So let's get into that manufacturing center where Padme and Anakin have to go through to try and find Obi first.
We gotta call this scene from now on Slapstick Central.
Do you guys know the trivia about this scene?
No, I just know that it sucked. What else is there to know?
So this wasn't in the original cut. This scene was filmed in reshoots because Lucas wanted a quicker pace for the third act.
So he added in 20
quicker
minutes?
pace.
Yeah, he added in this whole scene in reshoots.
Yeah, this scene's terrible.
Wow.
It's so bad.
Yeah, like how did they end up in there? They immediately got off the ship and then all of a sudden...
Yeah, they like
falling.
walk into a tunnel and they're just immediately in the manufacturing center. At the like transition into this is so jarring.
And 3PO falls and he gets screwed up.
Yeah, when 3PO falls and becomes CG, that sucks. R2.
Yeah, we get some sweet 3PO comedy.
Yeah, R2 saves the day
funny at all.
as usual because Padme almost gets burned alive.
I do like R2 saving.
Yeah,
though,
R2's the
because
best.
he finds a way to save him in every movie. He's awesome.
Yeah, we love R2. We stan R2 here.
Of course, Anakin has his lightsaber broken as well.
Obi-Wan's gonna kill me.
And then they are taken captive, and they're put on like a chariot-looking thing, and Padme confesses that she loves him.
What was this? What was this? Truly, deeply love me. And he's like, you love me? That's so weird, dude.
So they are forced into this like gladiatorial like arena where they're reunited with Obi, and this is where we get Matt's favorite part, or favorite Obi-Wan line.
He walks over like the little wiener that he is, and he's just like, we're here to rescue you, Master. And Obi-Wan's just like, good job, douche. Like, great plan. Great plan.
Their relationship has just grown so much over these 10 years. You can tell how much they deeply care
like
about each
father
other.
And son.
Yeah.
They keep saying it, and I totally believe it.
I was going to say, we get the other good line too whenever they're like, just remain calm or whatever. He's like, what about Padme? And then she starts climbing up and think, she seems to be on top of things.
Yeah, I like that part too. That part's fun.
Yeah, I do like that Padme like can take care of herself. I'm glad that she doesn't have to like keep being saved, which is nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they do release those like 3 monsters, and it's just a big CGI fest until the Jedi show up.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's cool, but it just feels like, did I really need to be in here and to have to be this long? I mean, Obi-Wan's fighting that spider monster for like 20 minutes.
Do you mean this long of like just the 3 of them fighting, or did you think the fight with all the Jedis was too long?
No, I thought the 3 of them fighting went on a bit too long.
Yeah, that drug on for me too. What do you guys think about all the Jedi showing up? Do you guys like that?
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I like that.
I like the concept of it. I like the idea of looking at the originals. I mean, we see basically Obi-Wan, Luke, and Yoda. Those are your Jedis. And then in The Phantom Menace, we get Qui-Gon, we get Obi-Wan, and we get a taste of the bigger world. But here's actually seeing all the Jedi in action. It was a cool way to do it. Basically have them all show up and you get this huge battle, kind of see what the Jedi used to be. So it's cool. Is it executed great the whole time? No. There's lots of silly moments. Some of it doesn't look that great.
So I do think parts of this like just look so bad, but I do love the moment with Mace Windu and Jango fighting. Like I love how like it doesn't even take like a whole lot of effort from Mace Windu. Like he just looks so overpowered when he fights Jango, and I think it looks really cool. And he's just like so efficient with his strokes too when he gets the upper hand.
Yeah, it is a little weird because like Mace Windu is supposed to be like he and Yoda are like the Jedi Masters. I mean, there are more, but like they're the two big ones. So it is weird seeing him in action because he doesn't look any better at anything than anybody else that's there. And it does make you think back on the Obi-Wan Jango fight, how cool that was. And then Jango basically just dies he just tries to shoot him. It's like, what about all the stuff you did against Obi-Wan earlier? He just tries to shoot him a couple times and then just gets beheaded. It looks cool watching Mace Windu actually.
Well, he did like immediately kill that one random Jedi with his blaster. So maybe he was just trying to get quick shots in.
Yeah, but I mean, it's cool. Obviously, we knew it was coming because they had to give up Boba Fett. Some tragic thing happens so that he takes up the mantle. But
this scene was cool, though, because, I mean, you get to see that many Jedi fighting together.
Yeah, it looks really cool. It's just like eye candy, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I fucking love when Yoda shows up. Like, from when Yoda shows up to the end, like, I love everything that happens in this
the
film.
clones, yeah.
Yeah,
that was cool.
I think it's so cool. It's one of my favorite parts in Star Wars.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool that they were about to be killed by Dooku and all of his Geonosis weirdos. And all the droids. So yeah, that's pretty badass when they showed up.
And what do you guys think about like the larger clone and droid battle? I think this is like one of my favorite like battle set pieces in all of Star Wars too.
Yeah, I think we get into better clone battles though in the third one, which we'll get into when we go into the third one. We'll see some even cooler clone battles. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
I agree with what you guys said. I mean, it doesn't always look great in terms of like the CG and all like the choreography. It's kind of simple since there's so much going on, but you know, I think it works well enough. It's certainly more exciting than most of the stuff happening in this movie, so you know, I can give it that.
So while this battle's going on, we do get a brief shot of Dooku meeting with his leaders, and they show that they're building the Death Star. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, basically the most important thing to them wasn't really getting away with their lives. It was making sure that the Death Star plans were taken off Geonosis. So I like that. It was cool.
Okay, and so eventually Dooku flees. Anakin, Obi, and Padme give chase. Padme falls out of the ship. Anakin looks like he's about to shit his pants, basically.
Put the ship down. Put the ship down. He just keeps saying it over and over again.
The way he screams is so funny in this movie. Like, every time he screams, Padme! She falls down.
I hate them! Yeah, this is pretty funny.
She falls like 50 feet, too, and rolls in the sand. Somehow didn't break any bones.
Yeah, she was fine.
She very, very conveniently falls out at the top of the
hill.
Sand,
yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah. So eventually they catch up to Count Dooku, and then Obi-Wan tries to strategize with Anakin, but Anakin dives in head first and is immediately shocked and incapacitated by Dooku.
Another funny line by Anakin. Like, I'll take the left, you go in slowly. I'll take him now! And he just runs in. He's like, no!
And this is supposed to be the big fight. This is supposed to be our sequel to the Darth Maul fight. I mean, just think about
Obi-Wan gets his fucking ass kicked.
I mean, just think about it, though. I mean, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, how cool that was when they fought Darth Maul. And it's like, oh shit, now we're going to get this new Sith fighting two people again, but this time it's Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker. This is going to be so cool. This fight, garbage. Yeah, Anakin immediately gets incapacitated by the Force lightning, which was cool to see. But then...
looks just as bad as it did in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, weird that it looks... Well, that was weird. And then Obi-Wan and Count Dooku. I theorized with this, I think with both of you before, I give props to Christopher Lee. The guy is, like I've said, he's a legend. He's been in so many amazing franchises and movies, and I do appreciate that he clearly, even at the time, you know, still in older age, wanted to do as much as he could. And it looks like he is doing it, like the fighting, which is cool. And if he is doing that, that's cool. But
it doesn't, though.
I'm just saying the idea of like this older guy, like,
because they just pan on his face and he twiddles his thumbs above his
that's what I'm saying, though. And it's like, if you're gonna make him do it, can you give him cooler shit to do, or is it just that he's too old and he's like slower, so they had to like slow down Obi-Wan. Think about Obi-Wan whenever his rage and how fast he fights against Darth Maul at the end of Phantom Menace. And here it's just, I don't know what it was. It was weird. It was bizarre. And then we get something that like you're like, wow, that Obi-Wan fight was disappointing. But then it's going to be cool because then Anakin jumps in, defends his master, and we're like, oh shit, this is going to be awesome. And then Obi-Wan throws him his lightsaber, like, he's dual wielding lightsabers.
That was so cool.
That's what I'm saying.
So
That's
cool.
what I'm saying. This is so cool. And then he literally attacks him for a second with the 2 lightsabers. And then, I'm not even joking, they cut to a wide shot. Anakin strikes, they hit lightsabers, and then he just puts his arms down. And then Count Dooku cuts his arm off. He was just... it felt like, again, that's one of the things that's not good about the prequel lightsaber stuff, especially in Revenge of the Sith. It feels so choreographed. So it felt like in that moment, Hayden Christensen had finished his choreography. So he's just standing there waiting because he's done. And then Christopher Lee maybe was like a step behind or something. So now he's trying to finish late. And so it just looks, Anakin's just standing there waiting for his arm to get cut off. It's so weird. And then this is the end. That's the end of the fight.
It could have been such a cool moment, though, too, if the dual wielding had gone on longer. Like, it could have been so much
better. But they cut it down because they were like, guess what? We got something even cooler.
Got to make room for that manufacturing center.
Well, that, but also, we're going to shorten their fights so that we're going to have frickin' Yoda come in. And you're going to see Yoda fight with a lightsaber. And how fucking awesome is this? Oh, wait, it's not at all? Oh, my bad.
Okay, I do think the actual Yoda dueling is cool, but the little force battle is so weird.
What about, how did you like when Yoda for some reason has to growl and moan as he jumps while fighting? Yeah, that was pretty
Yoda
good.
That
was pretty good.
Yoda looks like pretty intimidating though when he's fighting.
Yeah, he looks
like he's
he
just
looks
flipping
cool.
all over the place. You can't keep track of him. He's like a little bug.
And again, I mean, obviously we knew from the get-go, like in Empire, Yoda clearly has a lightsaber. I mean, isn't that like their thing that they have lightsabers? And then in the prequels, it's like, oh, he definitely must have a lightsaber. Like, how would it look? What would it look like if Yoda fought? And then you think about that, it's like, how would that work? Because he's so tiny. And then here, clearly, the way that they make up for it is he is always like jumping, which is cool. But again, it just, I don't know. It's weird. And there's also a part where he literally, like, flips over Dooku. He's standing in a spot. He flips over Dooku, like, lands on the ship, and then, like, climbs up the ship, backflips off, hits a wall, jumps off, and he lands in the exact same spot that he started. And then they just keep fighting. It's like, why did he do that?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's bad.
Dooku does force Yoda to save Obi-Wan and Anakin, and he escapes. Yeah, Dooku meets with Palpatine and tells him the war has begun.
Where the hell were they?
Palpatine's like, everything's going as planned.
They were on Coruscant, but in a really ominous-looking part that you think people would have scoped out.
It's like super dark. Yeah.
I do love the closing shots of like the clone army amassing set to the Darth Vader music. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and it would have been cooler if like this had been the first movie in the trilogy, and then the next movie would have been the Clone Wars, and the next movie would have been like Revenge of the Sith. But it's so weird that this is the ending of this movie, and then I shit you not, if you haven't seen Revenge of the Sith, people, the next movie starts and the Clone Wars are over. It's like, what? Like, the clones are still there, but the war is done. It's bizarre.
But yeah, so Anakin and Padme secretly wed on Naboo with 3PO as the maid of honor and R2 as the best man.
Yeah. They don't say anything.
And then the credits roll.
Thank God.
Alrighty. Well, before we get into our awards, let's run down our current Star Wars rankings of the film that we've seen. Keith, start us off here.
All right. Number 1, Empire. Number 2, New Hope.
Well, but wait, I heard Attack of the Clones is just as good as Empire in the Sun magazine.
Yeah, it has to be number 2.
Number 3, I guess it would have to be... I think I'll have to go with Phantom. I'll go with Phantom. And then Return, and then Attack of the Clones.
All right, I'm going to go Empire, Phantom, A New Hope,
God.
Attack of the Clones, and Return. Return sucks, dude. Return is so fucking bad.
All right, I'm going to go Empire, New Hope, Return of the Jedi, even though I hate it.
You cannot convince me that Return is better than Phantom.
All right, I'm going to do Empire. I'm going to do A New Hope. I'm going to do Phantom Menace for now. I'm going to do Return of the Jedi. and then Attack of the Clones is last. I can't justify it. Maybe I would have put it above it, but because they had that whole manufacturing sequence, I have to put it last.
So I almost was going to go Return and then Attack of the Clones, but I just love the clone stuff. Like, I love the Clone Wars stuff at the end so much. So that for me beats out the entirety of Return.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that take. I hated watching Return of the Jedi, so I can't, give you shit for that one.
All right. Well, now it's time to get into my favorite part of the show.
Yes.
Let's do our awards.
Yay.
For those of you that are just tuning in, we do awards at the end of every episode. It can be an award for anything. Keith always starts us off. Keith, why don't you open up our award ceremony today and give us your awards?
All right, so for my rewards, I know you guys are probably thinking of Anakin for your rewards, right? Am I wrong? Or I don't.
You're wrong for me. I have an honorable mention that's Anakin, but my main award is not Anakin.
Okay.
I'm honestly worried we all might have the same award.
I 100% know you guys won't say mine. I would be shocked if you do, but we'll see.
Well, yeah,
I feel like Keith and I could have the same.
We'll see. I mean, I'm excited to see.
No, I don't think we do, because I think I'm going to change mine.
Oh.
Because I know you probably have something about Anakin, so I'm going to let you have one about Anakin. And I'm going to change mine to best candidate for Weight Watchers goes to Dex, Obi-Wan's friend at the time.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
Wow.
What about best candidate to own a belt?
Even better.
Most likely to not own a belt. Dex. Yeah.
That's a good one.
I'm
not sure if he's going to like that award, but he'll get it in the mail anyway.
We probably shouldn't send him that. That's funny.
So my award, there were so many candidates, and I actually might need some help workshopping the title of this award.
Mm-hmm.
But here it is. I'm going to give the worst with context line of dialogue award.
Okay.
To Padme. And here's the line that she's getting it for. The line is...
I already know what you're going to say. Oh, no.
Oh, no. I don't know if I can make it through it. Okay.
Just laugh while you say it. We'll get the idea.
The line is, "You'll always be a little boy to me."
I know the line. You'll always be that little boy from Tatooine.
Yeah. The line is, "You'll always be that little..." The line is, "You'll always be that..." Fuck. The line is, "You'll always be that little boy from Tatooine to me, Annie." And that line gets worse with context because she reveals that she's in love with him and she's always been in love with him. So how can she be in love with him if she still sees the little boy when she looks at him?
Not a great line, Jonathan Hales. Oh, that's a good award.
That's a good one.
I like that one. All right, I have one. I had some other ones floating around, but this one, I had to do it. And I didn't even really want to be honest. Because it's an award that I've already given, surprisingly enough. But it was so bad, I had to give it. So, on the Phantom Menace episode, I gave the Henry Cavill Honorary Most Inconsistent Mustache Award to Liam Neeson and the Makeup Hair Department. So, I'm giving a slight variation of this award. I'm giving we'll just call it the same thing. So, I'm going to give the Henry Cavill Honorary Most Inconsistent Mustache Award. But it's not just a mustache. It's an entire beard. And that goes to Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Really?
Who,
usually I'm keyed on this, so I didn't notice it at all.
Half of the movie, he has a real beard, and the other half of it, and it's probably one of those things, you only notice it, once you notice it, you can never unnotice it. I'm not even joking, you can look it up. Half of the movie, his beard is CGI, because he had shaved it off after they finished shooting the movie, and then they had to go do so many reshoots that his beard is very often just completely CG, and it looks terrible once you notice it. So I had to call it out. So I'm going to give this award to, of course, Ewan McGregor, the makeup and hair department, and I guess I also have to include the visual effects department on this one. So,
oh boy.
That's who my award
We got
is.
a lot of awards to mail out this week.
Oh, yeah, but there is some honorable mentions. I think we all three could agree that the biggest creep award goes to Anakin Skywalker.
That's a good way to put it. I was also going to do the same thing. I was just going to also give out one that we gave last time, which was the creepiest smile award. But this time it was going to be flipped, and it's going to be Anakin smiling at Padme after she tells him that he makes her uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I was going to give there's going to be a twist on my last award from the Phantom, but I was going to give most likely to end up on To Catch a Predator to Anakin Skywalker.
That would have been a good one to give.
All right. Well, I think that's going to close us out tonight. Thank you everyone so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. As always, please share us with a friend as well. We really appreciate that so we can continue to grow this show. At the Arnies is our social, and the Arnies.media is the website. We'll be back next week with a debate on the best movie scores. We're bringing the brackets back, and the Star Wars series will be back in 2 weeks.
And don't forget, if you send us a DM with your thoughts on Revenge of the Sith or the Star Wars franchise as a whole, whatever you say, we will read it on the next episode. So, there you go. Send us your thoughts on Revenge of the Sith, or send us your thoughts on if you think Dexter Jetster should have worn a belt. And, yeah, that's our show.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for listening.
If you are suffering as much as I am...